because we know it is possible.
And with his sister.
She's around him. This is the season Demon Slayer fell off for everyone.
My favorite anime this season. I'm like, damn it.
I see all of you.
Yes, I have lines. I even saw the silence on Twitter, and I was like, maybe I'm not alone here.
I realized this is the Akame ga Kill of the 2020s.
Oh my God.
That's like one of the best chapters of all
That
time. Like one of the
episode
best things I've seen in my life.
Holy shit. How did I miss all this? This is brilliant.
Yeah, this is peak fiction.
All the hot guys are playing the MMO.
Like, what's going on?
Which is not reality. Welcome to the first episode of the Just Weebs podcast in person.
Live.
We're here well, it's not live. It's
live for us.
It's live for us.
We're live.
We're doing this live. We're actually here in person, in the flesh. And today we're here to talk about seasonals. Not this latest season coming up, but last season, the season that just ended. And also, I guess winter?
Yeah, tangentially.
We'll bring up winter. But yeah, with the new season underway, tons of stuff coming out. We're like, hey, we've kind of been gone. We've kind of been away. We haven't even gotten to catch up on what we thought of like what's aired this year so far.
Yeah.
So we're like, hey, let's just talk about that. Let's see how we feel about that. So first up, with this past season that ended, what do you want to talk about?
What should we start off with?
What should we start off with?
Do we start off hot or do we start off like middle of the rank and go from
Or should we start off cold with winter?
Cold with winter. Well, we wanted no, because that works as like a good like retrospective. Because
Yeah.
I feel like both of us were not like super invested in winter as a season.
Yeah.
Because there was like a few like new shows, but nothing like it was a lot of sequels that you either were like on board with or not.
Yeah.
But like I think spring season had a lot of like new shows.
Yeah, because the winter is always like experimental, and this winter that kind of in the usual winter brand, it was a lot of isekai shows that were new IPs, and the rest were sequels or leftovers. Like one of the leftovers being Blue Lock from the fall, which we have thoughts on.
We do, yeah. We have detailed thoughts,
Yeah.
so we could save that for.
Yeah, but we actually didn't watch that too much in the winter. We watched that later.
Yeah.
So, but for the winter, like I rarely remember what I watched, but we can get to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for spring, I feel like spring we knew was gonna be kind of big because we knew Oshi no Ko was gonna be, leave an impact, one way or another. Because I had like heard about Oshi no Ko beforehand, because like everyone who's heard of Kaguya-sama is probably familiar with that.
Yeah.
And I was also familiar with the manga artist, because it's a duo between the Kaguya-sama author, Akasaka, and then Mengo, who is the artist behind Oshi no Ko. She worked on a manga called Scum's Wish,
which I never actually got to check out, but I've always heard about from you.
Yeah, I've heard it's called Kuzo no Hankai is the Japanese title, and that was probably my first experience with like really getting screwed over with the romance,
but with really good art,
but with great art, and it was like intentionally to make you hurt. Like it was one of those intentional like. When people brand it as like, this is the realistic romance where people are like treating each other terribly and they're toxic and that kind of stuff.
And meanwhile, you're sitting there asking like to yourself, like to the author, like, who hurt you?
Yeah,
why would you make this?
And why are you hurting me? Like, that's where I was at. So that was one of those cases, like you watch the first episode and then like binge the entire manga, which was like probably one of the worst mistakes because it was just so much.
Like no payoff. Like no.
Well, it worked. I think the ending is actually really good. Okay. So like not Oshi no Ko, sorry.
Kuzu no Hankai.
Kuzu no Hankai. I think it was in retrospect a worthwhile experience, but in real time was just like, no. I am distraught. I'm not doing okay.
It's cathartic, maybe.
Yeah,
a sense of catharsis.
But it had a great ending. But so knowing that this style of like both of these creators would kind of come together, I just knew we would be in for some peak fiction, deep shit. Like, we would be like
peak fiction, deep shit.
We're gonna be feeling something.
I mean, I never was acquainted with Kuzu no Hankai, but I took people's word for it that's pretty big. Him being teamed up with the Kaguya-sama author.
I think it's
her.
And then he's her.
Akasaka being teamed up with the Kuzu no Hankai artist. So. And the character designs looked really good. I actually had just watched the Kaguya-sama movie in the winter. I watched that in theaters in February. So that was That's actually really good.
Okay.
Like, I watched it with a friend who had read the manga, and he's like, we finished the movie, and the first thing he said was like, all right, you're good. You don't have to read anything else. You don't have to watch anything else after this. It just goes down.
People always say that Kagi has been falling off since the content in the movie, so I don't trust anyone.
You've experienced the peak. That's it. I'm like, okay.
I still have to see it, but I mean, I've read the manga, so I like the content. It's good.
Yeah, but the adaptation of the movie was really good. Cool. It felt, though, like it could have been episodes. Like, it felt like when they turn like episodes, what could have been episodes into a movie.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it was really good. I was very satisfied with it, with the story. It actually gave even more of a conclusion to what they had built up in the end of season 2. So
that makes sense.
But not to get too much into that. That made me have high expectations for Oshi no Ko.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect, and it delivered.
Okay, so I feel like this is going to be the new trend, which we're already seeing, of this like 90-minute first episode premiere.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, is this the best anime premiere ever? And it's like, well, I would hope so, because it's 3 episodes.
Yeah.
So kind of a bit of a cheat code there.
I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was such a good move, because right before Oshi no Ko aired, and I was like gearing up for it, I was like I was going to make a seasonal video. I'm like, I want to talk about it. I ended up like reading the whole manga. And then, which wasn't the plan. I was like, I'm just going to read like 10 chapters. And it was like, I got to know what happens next.
Yeah.
And then it ended up being the whole manga. And I was like, how are they going to adapt this? And my theory was, okay, they're going to like that pretty much what they adapted in that first episode. I thought that was going to be the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And that fact that they did it in a big 90-minute episode, I'm like, this was the best thing they could have done.
Yeah.
It felt like a movie. It was so seamless. They covered so much ground for an 11-episode core that it's like, oh, they're going to get to a lot.
And I feel like that's such a good balance, because there's so many like series where you feel like they need almost like a little more than 12 or 13 episodes. And I'm liking this thing where you see like, here's 1 episode, so it's technically like 12 or 11 episodes, but it's like 90 minutes. So it's like 14 episodes.
Yes.
Which I think works out like really perfectly.
Yeah, and it also just was so good because it's like that episode was essentially backstory. It was just necessary backstory to really get things going, Yeah.
And it's just like, what a bad shit concept. Because that's the first thing. Because you know what gets me? Because we're going to spoil it. It's been like, by the time this has come out, I feel like everyone should know.
Yeah.
We're already into the leaks for the current content. We're already there. So we're so far down.
Like, if you haven't heard, like, if you're not hearing it from us, you've definitely seen it on Twitter. So.
Yeah, you've seen it before Elon tanked the website. So.
If Twitter's still around by the time this episode comes out.
Yeah, so that's a good, like, timestamp of, like, when did they record it? You all know.
Yeah.
But, so it's like you hear the concept is like, so she's an idol. Is an idol who gets pregnant with twins when she's 16. We're already kind of getting crazy territory. Yeah. Then the doctor taking care of her gets killed by her crazy stalker. Yeah. We're already on like second twist. Then he's reborn as one of her twins. It's still, and this is still like early days and that's premise. We're not even like halfway through the first episode, and it's like, how many different things are happening? This is Chainsaw Man pacing for Oshi no Ko.
And honestly, when he reincarnated, like it almost lost me for a second. I'm like, oh, really?
This could go one of two ways. Like, this could get
weird. It was giving like a little bit of the creepy vibe, because they were building up to that, saying like, oh, hey, if only I could be reborn as her child. I'm like, fetish much?
yeah. It's like, it gets so weird, and you're like, okay, but so then what? And then it's like they thread the needle. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, no, they do.
They thread the needle of like him really being like infatuated and obsessed with her, but not in like a sexual way.
Yeah, and
so it's weird.
They thread the needle because they at least make him self-aware enough to like be like, okay, this is a little bit,
this is a bit weird.
This is a little unhealthy.
He's looking at himself like,
and
I'm a bit odd.
He kind of sees her more like, because he does eventually meet her and has his interactions with her. He kind of sees her more as like a father figure that she kind of didn't have, so it kind of toes that line of like, he wants the best for her.
Yeah, at least in his first life. I think he's like very protective of her.
Yeah.
And like he's very supportive of like her, but it's like I think it is kind of like the weird idol infatuation, which is something we can get into, where it's like, it really like toes the line between creepy and obsessed and like infatuated and supportive, which is like essentially how they present it in this series too, with other people and their idol opinions,
Yeah.
So, and then, of course, by the end of the first episode, she gets killed by someone who was a stalker.
Yeah, the actual creepy, stalker. And then that's where they draw the line hard in the sand. Like, no, this is, he's different from this guy. This is not what you want to be.
Yeah.
So that was like an interesting way to kick off what was the actual story. Because I feel like that first episode gives you a preview of what it's also trying to be, which is a commentary on the idol industry, because it's really a revenge story. Like, that's what the main plot is. but at the same time, it's trying to function as, okay, this is also a commentary on the idol industry of showbiz, like the dark side, like the ugly side.
Yeah, and it does a pretty interesting job of like getting us set up right from the get go with that. So it's interesting, and then like it continues to progressively be interesting in my opinion. Of like, you know, we get to see like Kana as like the child actress who's like kind of who passed her peak, trying to get back in the game. Akane, who goes through like, you know, gets canceled on Twitter and then gets like, you know, harassed into almost committing suicide.
That was a really like interesting arc. Like that was good. That was intense.
That was really good. And it's so like, it's very interesting also.
It's really relevant, you know?
Very relevant, but it's also very interesting also seeing the Japanese cultural perspective on it. Because I think a bit more in the West, we're kind of aware of, you know, when you feel like you should apologize for something publicly, at least for public figures, like they apologize. But then there's also a sense of like detachment, I think, in the West where you could be like, okay, if I'm apologizing and these people are just telling me to like, you know, go, you know, like
go off myself.
I'm not sure. And then like you could just be like, okay, well, they're just being assholes. But it's like there's almost a sense of like in Japan, they're like so much more polite and so much more courteous that it's like, I'm not saying they believe it more, but it's like they feel almost a bit more dedicated towards the apology. And like, you know, you could see her like genuinely taking it as criticism, whereas we would just be like, okay, they're just harassing me and being mean to me. I wouldn't take it as criticism.
Yeah, here like the meme is like, you know, like you just apologize and that's kind of it, even though you don't mean it. It's like it's the go-to, like the to-do is okay, you gotta
YouTuber apology.
Yeah, you gotta do an apology video and that's kind of it. Versus over there, like it's literally like shame because it's like a, you know.
Yeah, they're just really shaming her. And it's the same thing that happens in both cultures, but it's interesting to see like their impression of it and how she was like genuinely taking it to heart.
Like it was wearing away at her psyche like completely.
Yeah, and I think they portrayed it pretty well. And you know, that was a very like emotional arc, which I think it's good to see that they were able to capture that, because I know a lot of people were like hooked on the premiere and then they're like, oh, now it's a completely different show. I don't know if I'm into it.
Yeah, I wasn't keeping up with the discourse on that. Was that like, were people kind of falling off of it because of that?
So I think this is a very valid point that I heard, which was, you know, people were on board. Some people were on board with the 16-year-old idol who had a kid and is trying to raise them while also being in the idol industry and trying to like balance that, which was like the initial beginning.
Until she died.
Until she gets killed. And then it's a completely different story, which it is, but they weren't as on board with that as the first one, which I think is pretty fair because they do swerve. But I find both very interesting.
Well, I think that's what makes Oshi no Ko kind of like a little bit, has the potential to be polarizing. It's because it's trying to juggle these two things, one of which is very heavy with, you know, this other stuff. So it's like you're trying to be invested in the plot, but it's also doing this other thing where it's like, it really wants to make you aware of like, and comment on like, you know, like
the entertainment
social media
industry.
in the industry.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
And I don't think, I don't know, I don't want to spoil, but I don't think it always does that successfully.
I think it's very, the way I think of it is like, there's something we can touch upon also later is like, you have a lot of anime premises that are so over the top that they could only work as an anime or manga. They're very fitting for the medium. They're over the top. They're very dramatic. And sometimes that's really hit or miss because like, you know, we're describing Oshi no Ko and it's like, how many different swerves can we have in one episode? But like, it's not always going to hit for people. And the way that they portray it won't always hit.
Yeah.
So even within the same series, even if we're on board, we're like, okay, I don't know about this decision. This seems a bit odd. So it's a balancing act of like maintaining a sense of like authenticity and realism that you can connect with, and also over the top actions that are like really keeping you gripped.
Yeah. What would you say? Because I like only watched a little bit of the adaptation. I'm only basing it on like what I watched from the manga. But how do you think or what I read from the manga? How do you think the adaptation stacked up or enhanced the source material?
I think they did really good. I think it's a really good adaptation. Obviously, you can see in like episode 1 that level. It wasn't always like on that level, but it was very consistent. Consistently looked good. You can also see like the like Akane suicide attempt episode, you know, that's not a flashy idol performance. That's something a lot more introspective that mixes the like social media focus with her mental state, and they do a fantastic job with that. We also get the idol performance at the end of the season, which I think they did a really good job with as well. I think they did a good job of portraying also like it's the big scene of, you know, Kana is having her introspective moment of feeling like she doesn't have anyone to rely on her, and then Aqua holds up the white glow stick. I think they might have done it. I think it's hard to capture that because the stillness of manga really like emphasizes that. And I think they did a good job with that.
That's good.
But I don't know if that one scene was quite as good as something like showing how Ruby, when performing, is really giving people the impression of I. Like they did a great job with that. And that's like a lot more movement based.
Yeah.
But I think overall they do a great job. And I think it's a great adaptation that I think you could say it definitely took advantage of the medium to also have those idol performances and give you that energy and show you like when they have that charisma flicking the switch, especially with like also Akane, you know, getting into character as I.
Yeah.
That's something you can kind of see in the manga, but like you can really feel that
so
when they do that.
Would you say it was it as creepy as in the anime versus the manga? Because it was like in the manga, it was like, holy shit, like she is her. Like
she really put on that air, and it's like it's a very like, you know, bit off-putting where you're like, oh, okay, what's going on? And then, you know, it's just like her with the sparkles in the
Mom?
eyes. He's getting, it's like a mom zone, but like positive connotation. So, yeah, I think they did a great job. I think it's a great adaptation.
So you excited for season 2?
I'm very excited for season 2. For the next upcoming arc, we know...
that was a pretty great arc.
That one I love. And also I know that this is like not especially Oshinoko specific, but it gives, you know... I think we both read Octage.
No, I did not. But I've always heard things.
You know, Octage, my second favorite arc, both theater performances.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, it's like, it kind of feels like the spirit of that for me, even if it's a bit different. That idea of like competing via performances. Yeah. And I love that.
I mean, while I was like reading that arc, I had always heard about that other manga. Yeah. How do you pronounce it? Actage?
I always called it Actage. Apparently it's Actage. I have no idea.
We'll go with one of those. But
Actage.
Pretty much knows. Like when I was like reading that arc, I was like, oh, like I wish there was like a manga that was just this. Like this is so interesting. And I'm like, it made me think of that. I'm like, oh, now I get why probably people really like that one. And we're sad when, you know. Yeah.
You know, the author turns out to be a piece of shit.
But hey, that's how it is. But yeah, with Oshinoko though, like I think I'm not gonna get too much into it, but I think in terms of season 1, I'm glad it hit it out of the park. In terms of the long-term story, I think its only weak point for me, I think, is really Aqua's revenge plot. It doesn't always hit.
Okay, so
like I think the industry stuff is actually pretty interesting. Like it's a mixed, you know, execution, but like I think the revenge plot doesn't always do it.
I think it depends because I was thinking of this. I think Aqua gets way too much shit by the fandom overall, considering the people, the anime community kind of give a pass on things that I'd say are like a lot worse or creepier or whatever. Yeah. Like I think Aqua is cringe at times with his revenge shit, but everyone else around him recognizes he's cringe. Yeah. It's very much like no one is really finding his like revenge stuff to be really cool. They're like, dude, you're like such a loser. Like, what are you doing?
And I guess like I'm not giving him shit.
Yeah, no.
I think I'm just saying his side of the story isn't always as compelling.
Yeah, that's true. Because it gets to the point where you're kind of like, when can you kind of give up on this and try and find happiness? Yeah. And you do want him to do that, and you get frustrated when he doesn't.
Yeah, he just picks like the totally wrong path, and it's like, bro,
dude, stop. Yeah,
you're trying to be like Yagami. Come on.
No, oh my god,
He's like one chapter away from pulling out a Death Note. Let's go.
And I think the problem is also like we need the revenge arc to be as interesting as the idol stuff and like the industry stuff. So if they manage to make that as interesting, I will find that. I'll be there.
Yeah.
But I think they do have like a slight uphill battle because we're all essentially rooting for him to kind of let go of his revenge and just find happiness with the people around him because we know it is possible.
And with his sister.
She's around him. We cannot.
For some of the fandom.
I hope by the time we come back to that, we have, you know, we're either going to be like, you know, it is what it is, or like told you.
Hey.
Told you so. They were baiting us.
That's when like we no longer wholeheartedly support it. We got to take a step away.
Yeah, we're going to take it. Our YouTuber apology.
But yeah, I don't want to get too much into it, but I'm glad like it has an adaptation. I'm glad it's like, you know, it's doing something with the medium rather than just being like, all right, we're just going to adapt, you know, panel for panel. You know, it's kind of trying to elevate it. So
that's pretty
awesome.
It's a fun show.
It's a fun show.
Would
you say that's like, do you get the sense that that's people's like top of the list this past season?
I don't know. It's a tough thing because I think the people who disliked it have always disliked it. And then the people who enjoyed it have always enjoyed it. So I don't know if it's like held to the same regard as like the first premiere episode, but I think a lot of people would consider it like probably one of the best of the season.
Okay. Yeah.
I think so. I think if you saw someone have it as their favorite, you'd be like, yeah, that's not surprising.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because that's what I got the sense, because I wasn't sure if there was anything else that was like being
I don't know.
as talked about.
I can't tell because it's always tough to get a sense of the general public.
Yeah.
That's what is really tricky. Yeah. Because you hear a lot of like vocal minority people, but like overall public, it'll be interesting to see.
Well, one thing we can agree on is Kana supremacy.
Kana, are we all Team Kana?
Team Kana, let's
Kana,
go.
our girl.
I don't know if I necessarily want her to get with Aqua just because like
he's Aqua therapy.
He's kind of toxic, but
Aqua therapy.
I think he needs to get with therapy.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like I think out of all of the ships, she's the most compelling.
Yeah, no, she is.
She is, and she's best girl. I love her.
I don't think Aqua deserves her.
Yeah, that's understandable.
It's more of that.
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see how he shapes up. But
he needs to shape up.
Yeah.
For our girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What else? What else have we been watching this season? What else is
You know what? This season was very big on romances, which is so weird to say.
That's true.
This was not like I feel like there's not very often where you get like multiple romance series that are like very well received and high profile.
Were they like 4?
I think there are 4. There might have been more, but like not as high profile. So I feel like the 4 for me that I both attempted to watch and keep up with, which, I'm not good at keeping up with seasonals, but I've been binging some here and there. I think it's like Skip and Loafer, definitely probably the most well received. We got like Dangers from My Heart or Of My Heart.
Okay.
Boku
I actually did. What's
Boku
the
something.
Japanese name?
I think it's like Boku Yak something.
Oh, I think I heard of that one. Okay.
That one. Then Insomniacs After School.
Okay.
And then Loving Yamada-kun at level
999,
which I just call Yamada-kun. I don't have time for the other parts.
It's too long.
I don't have time. But they're all like different in the way, like they all have different vibes, different tones, like sometimes different age groups that they're covering.
Yeah.
And I think they've all been like pretty well received, which is cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little something for everyone. IGN 4 out of 5.
I think we got to talk. Actually, first of all, like you brought up that you're not usually into seasonals. Like, what brought you back?
I think we had enough of a hiatus where.
Yeah.
But I really was. I heard of like a lot of like interesting shows this time. I'm like, you know what? I'll check it out. Yeah. It looks like there's a lot worth checking out.
And like, did you actually have a good time, or did it feel like still like obligatory? Like, okay, 6 out of 10 shows.
No, I don't think I've had a 6 out of 10 show yet.
Okay, that's good.
I think.
So I think, I didn't watch the two of the ones that you mentioned.
I didn't catch up on 2 of them either.
I think Insomniacs I didn't get to watch at all.
No.
Even though I was like really interested in watching that one. Like visually it looked really cool, but I didn't get to watch it.
I will binge it. I'm just in the process of binging it. So I saw 2 episodes and it was very cute. I'm definitely down with the premise, which is like, I don't know, did you see any of it or am I?
Just the trailer.
So it's like essentially these 2 kids who have insomnia and they're trying to like, they try to find a place to get a way to like sleep during the day. So they kind of like start up this astronomy club again because they want to use that room to nap.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be, and it's like them getting to know each other and then like find out why they have insomnia and like then, looking at stars and stuff, I think.
Okay.
So
that makes sense. So they like cute. Bond over, staying up and like
yes.
looking at the stars and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I got the
very
vibe
cute.
for of it. So Skip and Loafer. Do you want to start with that one? Or do you want to start with Yamada?
We could do Skip and Loafer.
Yeah, because the other one I didn't watch.
Dangers of My Heart.
Dangers of My Heart.
That one is also, I think, about like middle schoolers.
Okay.
And it starts off, I'll just summarize it since we're here. It's like the kid is kind of like, he's like a weird chuny, but like for serial killers. He's kind of like a white girl who's obsessed with like true crime, but like he's like imagining, he's like, all these kids around me, they don't know the danger. But he's like on his bullshit and he's actually like a sweet kid. Like you can tell he's thinking of it. But he wouldn't actually.
Like he doesn't take himself too seriously.
No, like he thinks he's serious, but then he like snaps out of it immediately and wouldn't do it. But it's a very weird opening to a series where I think it put a lot of people off, understandably. But I think it becomes progressively more clear that he's just like an awkward kid who's like playing make-believe in his mind, would not actually do anything. And then once he kind of gets over it, it's a very wholesome story.
Like,
that's what I've heard.
Like the difference between stalkers and Oshi no Ko.
Yes.
We're not that.
Yeah.
It's more like this.
People would not want to be, they probably wouldn't want to be compared to Oshi no Ko, but it's more fitting than they realize. But I think that's the kind of impression it gives, is like weird at first and then it's wholesome. That's what I've heard from people. I have to see for myself firsthand, but it's very clear from the first episode that like his weird internal monologue about like killing people and like it's like no, because most of the time it's kind of I don't know what the style of this is, but it's almost like, you know, with like Takagi-san where she's like teasing him and he's like trying, like freaking out in his head and thinking of like everything that's going on.
Yeah.
That's kind of the style for him where he sees someone acting weird and he's like, okay, what are you doing? That's really odd. Like, and he's just going through that. It's like that kind of style show of a lot of like internal monologuing about events going on around him.
Okay. So because you see the internal monologue, you see like, you know, he's kind of just in his head.
Yeah. So
actually, you know what? I don't want to get into the romances yet. I want to save those. I want to save those.
Punting, Skip and Loafer, and Yamada.
Yeah, let's do it for later. Yeah. What else? So the only other things that I think that I watched were leftovers. It was Witch for Mercury.
Okay.
Or Witch for Mercury, Gundam Witch for Mercury, and Vinland Saga Season 2.
Okay.
I don't know. I think those are the only two like leftovers that I watched. Did you watch any other like leftovers?
I don't think so. No, I did. I think the only other because I have to catch up on Vinland Saga and then and Witch to Mercury. I'm still on season 1.
You don't have to.
Okay. Ooh, okay. So spill the tea. What's going on? Because Witch to Mercury is something I've been behind because I'm bad at staying on track with seasonal. So I remember hearing end of season 1, crazy shit went down.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, there's the Gundam part.
Yeah.
And then season 2, people were like really like cruising with it. But then I feel like the past couple weeks, people have been very quiet on it.
Yeah,
so.
I was part of that initial audience, like super excited, like, yeah, this is the real Gundam, let's fucking go. Yeah. And then like season 2 was like, okay, all right, it's building up, it's cool. And then we just got all quiet in the past few weeks. And it's because I feel like, you know, and I know, knowing your commitment to shows, I know you're going to end up watching it anyway.
I will watch it.
Just out of curiosity. So whatever, like it's not.
You can spoil it though.
I wouldn't say. I think the most apt way to say this is like, I wouldn't say it's like Darling in the Franxx like level of fumbling the bag.
Okay.
In like, you know, because it really is in like 16 and up, which is kind of the same like run of episodes that it kind of just like, it's just not as compelling. I feel like the writing decisions weren't as good, but it wasn't anything like out of left field. It just was just a bunch of...
Not with the bang, but with a whimper kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of uninteresting choices. And I think I saw something on Twitter, someone like really succinctly say it. It's more of like, you know, I really appreciated that this is like the first like of its kind, like Gundam with like its first female protagonist, a female like design Gundam, a strong female cast or whatever. But besides that, it's like a lot of this second half was like really rushed and a lot of it fell flat.
Gotcha.
Because I feel like I watched the last episode yesterday. Now I just gave away the timing for when we're recording this.
As if they couldn't figure that one out. Yeah.
I watched the last episode and it was just like, you know, I think this wasn't that like epic. It wasn't that much of like a peak, you know, the stuff that did happen. But I feel like, you know what, if I look at this, I'm like, this could have worked if there was more time for this to develop. Yeah. So it could feel earned.
Yeah.
Because by the end, I just felt like I didn't care.
Gotcha.
Like I just felt like, okay, I don't really give a shit. Like this is kind of an interesting, but maybe it could have been interesting if they put more time to like develop this.
Gotcha. I think that makes sense. And I've heard so many cases of series like that. And sometimes they can't, you know, sometimes things start off strong. Sometimes things just don't nail the ending and it's tough.
And that's also like what makes you like kind of jaded when you watch a lot of anime. It's because like when you commit to a full like 24 episodes, like you kind of have to be very selective in the first few episodes to nail down like, all right, what kind of vibe is this giving me? Is this going to land, you know, on its premise? If not, like, let me drop it, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes you wait it out and it's like, oh, the whole first core was like awesome. It was great. And then you get to the end. It's like, oh no, this wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Do you feel like it was this was my weird like thing on it when I started, which I still enjoyed, but like, it's so very obviously trying to go for like Utena, but with Gundam. Like so much of it is very obviously taking Utena's story beats from like the bride aspect to like, you know, fighting for the bride, her like Suletta, I think that's her name. No, what's the other girl's? Miorine. Like fighting for her, like that, like what's his name? Guel or whatever. Guel, yeah. Like him being toxic, but like because of the environment, like all of that is so like right out of Utena for me, which I think is really cool that they have it. Do you feel like they were kind of like trying to do one more than the other so they didn't really match like the Gundam vibes that like are normally there, like the Gundam story beats? Or do you think
I didn't watch Utena. I've always been meaning to, but I did hear that a lot. I did hear like all of these story beats even up until the second half, like a lot of stuff was pulling from there. But I thought like again, maybe I didn't feel it because I didn't watch Utena, so I couldn't like actually like blatantly see it. But I felt a lot of it, like the fact that they were doing that was like really interesting. I thought like, oh, this is really cool. It's like a breath of fresh air. Because some people, what I did hear is that some people weren't as into like the whole dueling aspect for like the whole freaking first half of the season. It's like, all right, that's not like super interesting. But I was down for it because I felt like this is all building up to something.
Yes.
Which is like, that's what it had going for it in the first half, like that potential to build up to something. But, I don't know. I thought like the fact that it was borrowing from a strongly written, female-led show, I'm like, that can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
But for you, did it like, as someone that did watch it, did it like bother you? Did it like, was it a little too obvious that it was like, okay.
No, I mean,
like, it was wholesale ripping off.
I don't think it got into ripping off territory because I've seen shows where I'm like, you are literally just ripping off this other thing I've seen. This one was like probably like as good of a like taking story beats without being a ripoff as possible, where like the influence is obvious, but they're obviously doing enough that's different. I haven't gotten far enough to see like how it all plays out, but I just wasn't sure if like the reason it felt like it didn't like pack a punch at the end was like it didn't go like, as hard as Gundams normally do, at least in like world building or something. But I've only seen one other Gundam series, which was like the Gundam Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
And I think they do a good job with like the world building and stuff and kind of the like, I mean, to simplify, war is bad message, which they did a good job with that. I just wasn't sure if like this one had like an identity crisis.
I felt like I'm trying to like word it in the best way possible. I'm like, I'm not trying to be like, I'm not overly, like down on it, but it was just sort of like, I think it's just, I don't know if the word is meandering. Like I felt like it just felt like at some point, like it had all this steam, all this momentum. And at some point it just let it out. Like it just, it kind of didn't build on it anymore. It just sort of, it felt like it was padding out for a choreographed end battle. Yeah. That was like 5 episodes away.
Oh, interesting.
Like it felt like, okay, like me and my friend were talking about like what the end game is going to be for like 4 episodes already. Like, all right, we know where this is going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, cause at this point, like we thought this was going to happen like 3 episodes back. It still didn't happen. I'm like,
wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's looking.
And we called it like last week and it was just like, yeah, I don't know. And we were both like hyped about it.
Yeah. Like
talking about it every week. Like he called one of the plot points like in episode 14, like, oh, this is what's going to happen. She did this effed up shit to her daughter. And that's what like led to that. I'm like, oh shit. And then it happened. And I'm like calling him like, dude, you were right.
Yeah.
So we were like, we were legitimately excited about it. We were like all in, like we were excited about the potential of it. But then at some point, like episode after episode, it just wasn't capitalizing on that. It's like it peaked and then it just.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like
that's tough.
Yeah. So
that's tough. Not with a bang, but with a whimper.
And like the ending again, it was all right. Like it was like a nice, like neat little bow on it, but it was sort of like, all right, it's over.
Oh, that's sad. Because I feel like everyone was so excited about it for so many weeks. And it was like kind of fun watching everyone be so excited, knowing I'm like, okay, I'll catch up. But sometimes how a series will play out based on how people react to it, especially people who are as like passionate about it as you, where you're watching it week to week, and then you're like, if they're not really like screaming about how great this is, I know it's kind of a disappointing ending.
Like I even saw the silence on Twitter and I was just like, maybe I'm not alone here.
Not alone on Twitter.com.
No, we're always alone on Twitter.com. We're really kidding. We're in our rooms. But speaking of like being selective about shows, and that's why like you try like not to be like snobbish or whatever, like try to give shows a fair shot. But sometimes when you've watched enough, there are certain telltale signs in the beginning where you're just like, I don't know about this, fam.
Yeah.
And one of those from the beginning was Hell's Paradise. It's coming.
That was the best intro for it. Okay. Speaking of another one where people are just silent on it online, like, oh my gosh. That one's so disappointing because I don't think I've ever seen a show that has such an interesting premise executed in the most boring way possible.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like I was on board because it was kind of like an easy watch. I've heard some people like it. I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. I think the first episode was pretty good. Second episode, kind of like continuing the momentum. Do you know about it? Like,
so
how much
I watched
do you know?
Like 8 episodes.
Oh, you watched 8 episodes.
So I didn't even drop it. I just kind of fell off. Like, I'll get back to it. But I also wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get back to it. It was like, I'll get back to it. Whatever. Yeah. Like, because I think someone mentioned, it gets good. So I'm like, I kept watching. So I did catch up a little bit. But like from the beginning, first of all, when I found out about it, like on AniChart or something, like I hadn't heard shit. Like, I didn't even know Mappa was associated. I was just like, because again, I heard nothing, no buzz, just crickets. I'm like, oh, new season, new show.
Yeah.
From Mappa? Okay.
Yeah.
I should probably check this out.
Yeah.
I watched the first episode and I kind of noticed a few things in the animation. And I'm saying, like, I'm not an expert, but there are a few telltale signs that are like, this is not the usual Mappa. This is not like,
not my Mappa.
Something looks a little janky, but I'm like, okay. But I'm trying to, and I've heard good things. I've heard the source material, some people say it's really good. So then by the end of the first episode, I'm like, you know what? This is kind of interesting. I could get into this. Like, it did feel like it was trying to be edgy for like a gore fest type of thing. But then him trying to do it for his wife and whatever. I'm like, okay, that's kind of endearing. There's something here for like character development. I'm on board. And then kind of after that, everything just felt like, again, it was just trying to be that kind of gore fest, but not interesting. Not compelling.
Here's what hit me when I was watching it. I think it was around like episode 7 or whatever. When a certain character died, that was like probably the only one I liked. Where I was like, oh, I like you. You guys did a good job with the backstory. It was with like the blonde Asuman or whatever.
I think
for him with the blind Asuman or whatever.
Is that the guy that
I don't know their name. I'm not going to know their name.
Oh, okay. I think I know what you're talking about.
So I think you've gotten to that because it was like halfway through the season. So like the blind guy saves like the prisoner girl and like they escape and the blonde guy does like a heroic death. And when that happened, I realized this is the Akame ga Kill of the 2020s.
Oh my God.
And that sounds like an insult, but like I think Akame ga Kill kind of falls into similar pitfalls but strengths at the same time where it's like, interesting premise. It gets to the action and the gore and the intensity really quickly, but it falls in the same pitfalls of like, it introduces so many characters and it just kills them off to the point where you're immune to it. Cause like everyone's just dying. And I get that it's kind of the same. It's the same like, oh, we're on the deadly island. People are going to die. But like they kill people off before you have a chance to get connected to them. So it just feels like everyone's dying.
Wait, was that the one? Sorry, I'm trying to like remember. Was that the one where the guy finds these like two godly like figures in the forest?
No, not that. That's a different blind. So that blonde dude is the prisoner. This is the one where it's like the young girl who looks like a guy. They were on the boat fighting the sea monsters.
Okay.
And then they made it back to shore, and then one of the like Tenzin find them, and then like essentially he takes one for the team.
Okay.
So they get away. I'll show you a picture of them. It's like
no big deal.
But no, because but I think they just are like killing these people off so quickly to make the action keep going that like you don't have time to really give a shit about them. Because then like when people keep dying later, I'm like, okay, well who's next? Like they're just gonna keep dying.
There's something about stakes, and if you enjoyed it, that's okay. Like, but there's just something about like stakes and like action. Like you got to get people invested in the action for you to actually care. Like I don't know if this is like a hot take, but that's kind of the reason why I didn't fully enjoy John Wick 4. Like, it's not anime, but hey, you know what? It's kind of like anime. But because like it felt like all of this action, and this isn't a huge spoiler because I mean the title is John Wick, but all of this action was happening constantly on screen, just being thrown at you, spectacle after spectacle. But you kind of knew he was going to be okay. You knew John Wick was going to be okay. So at some point you feel like these are cool action set pieces, but I'm a little desensitized. I'm a little like...
And I'm sure John Wick looked better than Hell's Paradise.
Oh,
so I would imagine you're a bit more like down to watch the action set pieces than Hell's Paradise.
Yeah, I just meant like from the getting you invested.
That's 100%. And I gotta be honest, I love, trashing Mappa when it's fitting. I don't think all of this is on Mappa. I think a lot of the story and character, like the writing, because I read some of the manga too, just to see how much it patched up. It's still kind of the same stuff. It might look a bit better in manga, not that much, but like it's just the story itself, I think, is kind of guilty of it. And Mappa didn't do a great job of making the action hit different. It's still like, sometimes it looks really goofy. Sometimes it looks cool. Most of the time it's just like whatever.
I think this is also Mappa's like B team, like because usually in the winter season they get the younger animators or the animators in training to work on stuff. Because also they're like overworked to hell. So
exactly.
This is like probably a side project that they're like, hey, handle this while we like work on Attack on Titan final.
Yeah, final, super duper final for real this time.
Yeah,
the final.
I think that should be the last season. That's what it should be called.
If I knew that Gintama's influence would be everyone renaming their seasons the final season over and over again, I would have laughed because Gintama named like their final stuff, the semifinal, and then the final is the name of the movie. And now seeing Attack on Titan do that is just really funny.
I don't know. Me and my friends always used to joke about like years ago when Bleach was still like the manga was still serializing, and they Kubo announced like the final arc, but like the final arc lasted like 2 or 3 years, and we're just like, it's still the final arc.
The super duper final.
Yeah.
But so I think Hell's Paradise I think it got confirmed for season 2. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but it was a very average experience. I think it's one of those seasonals that, like, we'll talk about this right now. If you ask us to remember any details in 3 months, we will not remember.
I believe that. Because that's how I felt about it. I felt like I was just kind of passively watching it. I didn't really care. And I didn't really care too much about the characters. Like, I had a mild interest in them, but they didn't really flesh them out as much.
Yeah.
But, so it didn't conclude the story, right? So where did it get to? Like, what did it have, like, an okay ending? Was it just abrupt?
No, I mean, it wasn't much of an ending. You could just tell they're going to do season 2. It was not much of an ending.
It's sort of like, all right, we still got shit to kill.
We still on it.
I want you to bring up I think I saw this on your Twitter about the character with the sweat.
Oh my God. Okay.
That was interesting. I think you had a very interesting take on that. Like once I read.
Did I have an interesting take?
Okay, I mean, your initial setup was attention grabbing, and then
I just thought of it off the dome, and I was like, "This is so like."
I mean,
okay,
we knew what it was meant to look like. Anyone would have thought.
Okay, because it's like the ninja girl.
Yeah.
So first off, I have to say the big one of the big reveals on this island is just that like Nen is real. It's like their version of Nen, but it's like literally Nen. So once I saw that, I was like, so we're just Nen. We just have Nen. That's what we're doing right now. But so like the ninja girl has like one of her special ninja powers is she'll like consume a poison or something and then like sweat it out and turn that into a weapon, which is admittedly like kind of a cool power, but they present it in the most sexual way possible. Yeah. So it just looks like she's like covered in cum. Like she just looks like that's what she looks like. And that's like her whole like, in a weird way, I almost respect that more because that's her whole vibe of like being seductive.
She's seductive. That's the kunoichi's like, that's how they worked, you know?
Yeah,
like.
so like I respect that almost a bit more. There's other times when they like sexualize things in a weird way where I'm just like, okay, whatever. But I almost respect that a bit more for her. But I don't know, it's just kind of weird.
I think what was interesting about what you said, from what I recall, was like it's the power itself is not the issue. It's just that it's so obvious sexual that it's just.
It obviously is supposed to be look like cum. Yeah. Like that's obviously what they're going.
That's what is off-putting about it. You know, it's not the power. It's
like I would be fine if that was kind of like, that's so fitting for her.
Yeah.
Like that's like kind of cool for her. But I think it's weird how they kept showing Sagiri with like the way that her guilt of killing people is like her naked and all the like corpses hanging off her boobs and stuff. And that's like the only visual they had for her. And I'm like, okay, we don't need to see this in the ending every time. You guys can come up with something new. Yeah. Like let's cook up a different thing but it's like so weird with that stuff sometimes. Yeah. It's not like that bad. It's not like the worst offender. It's just like small stuff where you're like, I don't know if we need to keep replaying this.
I just kept seeing that screenshot all over Twitter for like a week. I was
the one I'm talking about with Sagiri, right?
No, sorry, the ninja girl.
Yeah,
I kept seeing the cum covered screenshot.
That's probably when people started saying it's getting good.
Yo, we're back on it. I think I saw Hell's Paradise trending that way.
Yeah. Well, you know what's the worst part is she was actually like kicking ass in that fight. Yeah. So it's like a 50-50 if like, you know, people were actually like, yo, this is going hard, or if they're like, here, Bungie come, here we come.
That was the attention grabbing statement. I'm like, oh, they have Nen now. It's Nen. Sexual.
Nen gone sexual.
I mean, technically, the guy who uses bungee gum is pretty. He's pretty sus.
How is this one more? I don't even know. That would be a fight for the ages. The ninja girl versus Hisoka.
Yeah, we should do that. That should be an episode.
Who would win?
Bonus
episode.
Pay us to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Hell's Paradise, I think like I had to bring it up because I felt like it was one of those most talked about, or like you had buzz around it. People were talking about it this season, but it was sort of like.
And then they stopped. And then they were like, no, we're done.
Yeah. So I dropped off of that one, and I don't know if I'll ever catch up, but you know.
Not missing much on that one. Maybe for season 2, but you're not missing much.
Probably not. But okay, so that's that. Vinland Saga season 2, right? Should we move on to Vinland Saga?
Yeah, you did do a video on that.
I did. Did you watch it?
No, because I haven't finished Vinland.
You haven't finished? I thought you.
So I'm so torn on. So I did a weird thing. I'm like halfway through this arc in the manga. do I just finish the manga or do I just watch the whole anime and then go back to the manga? So that's my internal dilemma.
That's interesting.
I was torn on what to
do. The anime makes some interesting choices. If you're strapped for time, finish the manga.
Okay.
If time is not an issue, I imagine like you'd read the manga faster.
Yeah.
But if time is not an issue, watch the anime.
At this point, I feel like it almost is easier to just watch this entire season and then go back and kind of restart the arc in the manga, which I might do because it's been a while. There's no like good reason for me stopping the manga, by the way. It was like I'm reading it online and then I was about to go buy the physicals and then I did buy the physicals and then I didn't start.
And actually, while doing my video, this always happens to me. So while doing my video, I was just like, let me confirm something in the manga. So I went to the arc, like I hadn't finished the anime yet. It was still airing. Yeah. I went to the arc in the manga just to confirm something. Because sometimes there's adaptational differences. So you you get a little more clarity in like some of the dialogue or something in the manga that they changed. So I went to check on that. I was like, I can't wait till next week. I finished the arc.
Yeah.
And then I just caught up to the manga. So yeah. But then when I went and finished the anime, I'm like, I could have just finished this. This was actually like really good. They did a really good job. But I also appreciated having the knowledge of both because I was able to spot like what they changed and how that affected the tone a little differently. So that was interesting.
So did you read, so you love the first season.
Yeah.
Love the first season. Did you read that content or no?
No, I didn't read it.
Okay. So you've seen both now. I mean, I feel like a lot of people think it's a good adaptation.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it's like a good adaptation or just mostly good adaptation, but just a good series overall.
Okay.
Even if it differs with the adaptation. That's my question. So how do you feel?
Like if it enhances the source material or if it's like a straight on just adaptation
no,
that
or
you
if
can
it's just
kind
like,
of...
because there's like, so there's like a difference in, I guess to me, in my opinion, of being a good adaptation and being a good like product. So like, you hear Lord of the Rings, mostly good adaptation, but they cut out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not the most faithful adaptation of the books.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
But they're still great movies.
I get what you're saying.
Even if they change a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas something like...
I have a friend, though. He loves those movies, and he's read the book, so...
Yeah, my mom is just weird. My mom is, like, very cognizant. She's really, like, respectful. She's like, I can't get over them changing this in the movie, so I'm just sticking with the books.
Gotcha.
But she recognizes, she's like, these are not the best adaptations.
The things that they change...
Yeah.
It depends on how you look at it. Like, if you are a person that... I don't mean to be offensive, but if you, like... If these small things are big to you, like you make mountains out of molehills, it'll bother you. Yeah. But if you're kind of like can go with the flow, then I think you'll be fine. Because the things that they change are like very like minor.
Okay.
Like it's just very minor.
Yeah.
Like there's one specific thing. All right. So like you've read the manga. You know how the manga has like a bit of comedy in it? Yeah. They kind of remove those comedic elements.
Gotcha.
Like for the adaptation. And they were like small moments. But like if you like those, then it'll bother you. Because if you felt like they added something, if you didn't feel like they ever added anything for you, then it won't bother you.
Okay, that's cool.
And that's kind of it.
Cool.
That's really it. Like there's like a whole exchange towards the end that there was like literally like a few seconds of like an added like dialogue that made it a little more comedic in the manga. Totally took that away from the anime to make it more of a somber, like not somber, but like more of a serious exchange, a more meaningful exchange. Because if not, it's kind of like in the middle of a meaningful exchange. So
yeah, that makes sense.
That's kind of it. So I see what the manga's doing, but I saw what the anime's doing. So I'm like, I go for either.
That's cool. So so I know this arc is kind of like peak fiction 10 out of 10 tier. Is it the peak fiction 10 out of 10 tier?
It is peak fiction 9 out of 10 tier.
Oh no! It's like, got hit with this classic 9 out of 10.
9.5. No. It's really good. It's really, really good.
Peak fiction.
Peak fiction. 9 out of 10.
That's so much like... Yeah, that's almost like, almost made it.
You got to take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm very like, I don't hand out 10 out of 10s easily.
You got to earn the 10 out of 10s.
Yeah. No, I think it did or almost did. I don't know. It was just really good. I just feel like you have to watch it. So.
I'm excited because I'm going to watch it now that it's all out because I also wanted to binge it. That's half of it. I know I personally enjoy binging things more than weekly watching.
To be honest, I think this arc would do you better to binge it. Just because that's actually one of the things I almost put in my video, but I ended up like not using it, of like the damage sometimes that weekly watching or weekly reading can do for you and your experience. And I felt like, so the reason I was going to bring that up, and I'm glad you brought up season 1, is because I did not remember anything from season 1. I didn't remember shit when season 2 came out. And I'm like,
what happened?
Yeah.
Who's this? And why are we here?
Why are we slaves now?
Yeah, like what's going on? And the other thing is like, I think back then I was kind of, because I was a weekly watcher, I also just wanted the, like, you know, you're kind of going through your work week, you're going through your school week. You just want to put on entertainment. You want something to give you like, you know, your fix, you know, like you want something exciting that day. And if you get like a slow ass episode that has all this meaning, at least in my experience, I'm like, I'm not in the mood or I don't care.
Yeah, definitely.
So, because that's like how I experienced Vinland Saga season 1, there was all these subtleties that I did not even catch on back then. Maybe because of different mindset or whatever. And like, so by the time I finished the series, I just was like, okay, that was cool, but I couldn't like articulate like what made it good. And then like, so while I was watching season 2, I rewatched all of season 1, and I had the luxury of, you know, being able to watch all of it at once. And I'm like, holy shit, how did I miss all this? This is brilliant.
Yeah, this is peak fiction.
This is really good.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's kind of like the downside of like, you know, watching weekly. I think. Especially where it's something that's like trying to build.
Yeah, and I think episodic series almost better weekly, and then I think like straight narrative series are better binge.
Like Kaguya season 2, great
weekly. Yeah, that's a great example, and that works perfectly as like a weekly dose of everything.
And it's like the stuff that it's building is not like super like, you know,
comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, like you don't have to like be careful attention. It's just subtle. Like it's like light characterization that like builds into something that's like, oh, okay, you know, you can like pay attention, and it's like that's
definitely But I can see that being
like you can see the vision more easily.
You can see the vision. I love that.
So that definitely helped with my investment, like coming back again into season 2. And I'm like, oh my god, this means so much. This is so good.
Is it your anime of the year so far?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, there's still more anime coming out this year, but I think it's pretty up there.
I'm excited because I from what I read, it has like probably the one chapter I read, which is of well, I read a bunch of chapters, but right before where I left off, it's the one of like Thorfinn is like in hell essentially, and he sees Askeladd with all the bodies and stuff. That's like one of the best chapters of all time. Like one of the best things I've seen in my life.
Yeah. You saw the whole episode animated though, right?
No, I didn't see it animated. No, I know the content. It's like what we were talking about with Oshinoko. We were like, well, I know the content, but I didn't watch the episode.
You gotta watch the episode. It's so good. It's so freaking good.
And I'm very excited for Vinland Saga because it's like a great series, but I feel like this also fits a very specific niche of kind of like, I want to call it like almost HBO-esque anime. Yeah. Like series that like if your parent is watching an HBO series and they love those types of like Breaking Bad, Sopranos as shows where it's like
this is like serious character study.
Super duper serious characters, adult characters. It's like the exact opposite of Oshinoko. It's very not weeby, not weeb-esque.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a good series to show people. And I think like other it would be like Monster or something would fall into that, or like Berserk, but this is like got like the most recent anime adaptations that's very accessible and it's a shorter amount of episodes.
Well, I think the other thing that I had thought about that makes it very accessible too, which some fans, you know, well, they're no longer fans, didn't like about it, is the switch up it has. That it gets, what makes it accessible is it gets you hooked in through the whole Viking era, the violence and everything in season 1, all the war and stuff. So that is it makes it very easy for like a mainstream audience to get pulled in, to get roped in, to then slow it down in season 2 and actually get into the meat of like the characters' evolution and like, you know, kind of them reflecting and all that stuff based on what happened in season 1. But if they only came in for the season 1 stuff, then they're they're dipping.
You saw a lot of that where they're like, Thorfinn is lame now because he's not wanting to fight people. And it's like, okay, you're lame. Yeah. We're here for the peak fiction show. Yeah. Not the killing people show.
Like, I don't know. Like I felt like in season 2, it's like the battles still continue, but it's up here. It's in the soul.
I said this a while ago. It's like people, if they're not really feeling Thorfinn and his pacifist arc, they're still in their prologue era.
Yeah.
They're in the prologue era.
I wasn't feeling him in the prologue era. So
and that's the thing.
He was just a dumbass.
Most people don't like Thorfinn in the first season.
Yeah.
And I feel like now people like got to see why he's been so acclaimed for so long.
And it makes sense because Thorfinn in the first season, he's just being manipulated. Like he becomes a background. He is a background character in the prologue. He's just a focal point. Like he brings you into the world, but the real main players are Askeladd, who's pretty much manipulating Thorfinn, and later Canute, who kind of comes into his own. So like it's not his story. Season 2 is his story.
Yeah.
So, and then that's where like
the manga, like, and the story really kicks off and leads up to like where it is now. So
yeah, I'm excited.
yeah.
I'm excited. The peak fiction arc.
Anime of the year.
What?
Anime of the year.
Anime of the year.
You gotta get on it, Sha.
I'm excited. That's one of those ones that I've put off knowing I'm gonna have a good time with it.
Yeah, like that's good to like when you know something's gonna be peak. I'm like, I could just leave this in my back pocket when I need a palate cleanser.
Leave some peak in the back pocket.
I literally watched The Flash recently, and me and my friend needed a palate cleanser, so we went to go watch another movie.
Night and day
Same
experience.
week. I'm sorry. I know most people did like The Flash, but for me, it was a fever dream.
I saw this one clip of it that was like leaked online. I think it was played backwards of him like either putting a baby into a microwave or not. And it was very cool to see Chainsaw Man season 3 leak.
No, Chainsaw Man season 3 is better than that.
But like I could just imagine Chainsaw Man part 3 doing like crazy shit like that, but like better.
Yeah, better. I mean, I think what made also the whole sequence so horrible, but I think this is like a common, I think most people agree to this, is that the CGI was just so bad.
Yeah, and their way of coping with it was worse. They're like, we're experimenting. It's like, that's not what you're doing. We know what you're doing. That's not it.
That's not it. This isn't it.
It's like an Okabe experiment where you throw a banana in the microwave.
Yeah.
Like, that's the experiment you're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of microwaves in this context.
Yeah, exactly.
But
so back to anime.
Back to microwaves. What are they cooking?
Yeah. Vinland Saga season 2. You should watch.
Yes, we will be there.
And I think, is that it? No, wait. There's 2 more anime, right?
Yeah.
That we punted.
You punted. You punted it.
Guilty.
You're.
Was there anything else though? Like that's it. That's it for the season.
I feel like that's it. What else did I watch this season?
I mean, we're making it sound like there wasn't anything, but
no, but first for us.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah, because like the other stuff besides those 2 that I punted, like I don't think I watched anything else. Oh no, there's one other one. There's one other one that I probably subconsciously forgot about because I wanted to.
What?
Demon Slayer.
Oh, okay. We were gonna talk. Okay, we will have a discussion. We have to have like the 3 kids who are like sitting at the table. It's like we will have a discussion. Okay, so for some reason, you'll tell me the reason. This is the season Demon Slayer fell off for everyone. Yeah. Apparently.
Yeah.
What is the reason?
I don't know. Like this season was just something about it. It just wasn't as compelling. It was like a little boring. I mean, I feel like the initial premise was interesting. Like Tanjiro is going to the Swordsmith village. You're learning about the swordsmiths, and he's crafting his sword. And it's like a giant. For most of it, it's like a training arc, sort of side story kind of thing. And then eventually, like demons come, and then they got to fight him.
Which is the premise of every Demon Slayer arc.
Yes.
Like,
Shaw giving us perspective. Like, just to let you know, this is what you've been watching. But
this
okay,
is
carry
I have
on.
my take, which might be more offensive than your take, but we get to have a take off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
nice. So, like, and that was all right. Like, I wasn't super invested in it. But I think where it got, like, I don't know, where it got really bad. I mean, it's also just Tanjiro. It's not the two Zenitsu and Inosuke. I know you'd
consider
love
that
that.
A win.
They're gone. I mean, they do sometimes do a little too much yelling. They were doing a lot of yelling in the beginning. I'm like, all right, this is a little annoying. But I'm actually okay with them. So it was just Tanjiro kind of training, and then the demons come to attack the Swordsmith village. And I don't know if it's because of the knowledge that my friend gave me that apparently, like, this is actually supposed to be a very small arc
I've heard that
in
too.
the manga. Like, this is not supposed to be a full season.
Yes.
That I started, but I think I started feeling it myself that there was a certain part of the arc that was just padded to hell. Like, they made 4 episodes out of nothing about this Hashira named Muichiro.
Yeah, Muichiro.
And they did like 4 episodes dedicated to him and his backstory while he's stuck in water. And I'm like, this is boring. This is just I can't do this. Like, I don't care. I don't care.
I saw some people complaining, which is like one of those cases of like fair enough, but also the point of the show kind of thing. Like they're like, oh, another person whose entire family was killed by demons.
Yeah.
And that's like I'm going to be honest, that's very fair because you can get a bit exhausted of like, okay, how many families can get slaughtered by demons? But at the same time, that is kind of the point of the show of like all these people are pushed into being demon slayers because their families were killed by demons.
And that's fair. And I think I couldn't take issue with that because it's like realistic. It's like, well, why else are they doing this? They're living a time of like demons or whatever. But it's like, I feel like it's always played out in the same way.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, all right, well, he seems like a cold-hearted bastard. He's mean, but let's show you why. Yeah. Let's go back. Let's unpeel the layers.
I do like for him, they at least throw, I guess, his unique thing is
he has amnesia. He has a twin?
No. Well, that's interesting. Where I guess he takes on more of his personality, but like he has amnesia. So like at least it's a bit of like, he's not just cold and sad because he's like, they killed my family, so now I can't have emotions and like open my heart up to people. It's more of like he literally doesn't remember himself.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, okay, you know what? Fair enough.
Yeah.
We'll take that. But I definitely think that's fair. I think I've realized this about myself. So Demon Slayer has become like my gym anime, which is why I haven't watched the last 3 episodes because I didn't get to go to the gym. So that whoopsie.
Shaw doesn't go to the gym. Shaw doesn't finish an anime.
Yeah, that literally has happened so many times. But I know if I don't see
that's why you gotta pick. You gotta do the opposite trick. You gotta pick anime that motivate you.
No,
like
but it is motivating me.
So you're going to the gym not to do the exercise. You're going to the gym to finish that peak anime.
But that's where I'm at with that because it is a good gym anime. It's a good like. Stuff's happening. And I
don't mean motivate you to work out. I mean motivate you to watch it, but you give yourself the stipulation, I can't watch this unless I go to the gym.
That's what's happened. But then I'm in like that catch-22 of like, I need to finish the show, but if I watch it, I'm not going to go to the gym. And that happened with Blue Lock, where I got to like the last episode, and I'm like, I'm watching the last episode of Blue Lock, but I'm like, I'm not going to go to the gym tomorrow if I do this. So it gets in that catch-22. But anyway, so I have Demon Slayer. So I haven't seen the last 3 episodes, but my theory stipulation is like each Demon Slayer season is essentially like we go to a new location, some shenanigans go down, then we get into the fight with the demons, and it pretty much is all ride or die on the big fight with the powerful demon.
Yeah.
That's what it all comes down to.
Yeah.
And I think what happens with this one is the big fight with the powerful demon did not hit as much, so it doesn't justify all the shit you went through beforehand.
Also, that demon wasn't interesting. One.
Which one?
Well, the main one that splits into all of the little scaredy.
That one was like okay, but also like not that compelling.
Yeah, the scaredy guy.
The feelings demon.
The fear demon or whatever. Him. But because he was the main demon they were trying to kill. But they
also have the jar demon.
No. Well, I'm including that in Mushiro's story, which was like padded out to like hell. But they also like felt like the one with the other demon like was dragged out forever. Yeah. Like there were so many moments of like, all right, we got him. Psych, we didn't get him. Psych, we didn't get him again. Psych, he's running that way, and it's like
he became the hatred demon after the sad demon and the joy demon.
And then in the last 3 episodes they killed like in the last episode or something. Because the last episode was 90 minutes, like an hour.
Again. Yeah,
it was long. I like 20 minutes in or 30 minutes in. All right, we got him, guys. That's it. It's over. Psych, there's 60 minutes left. We didn't get him.
Yeah, and that gets exhausting.
And I was just like, I don't care. And then by the end, have you read the manga?
No, but I know what happens.
I'm gonna spoil you anyway. I'm gonna spoil you too.
Yeah.
Spoilers. No. It ends with Nezuko regaining the ability.
That's what I saw.
Talk.
Yeah.
Like out of nowhere, and I was just like, why?
So they don't really like set that up in a normal way?
No.
It just happens?
It just happens.
I will say it is funny that the least popular season is the one where Nezuko learns how to talk again. I see all of you.
I was baffled by the decision. I'm like, why? Why?
Now her voice actress can be in the show.
Her voice. We were joking. Like I'm watching with my wife, and we were joking. Like her voice actress is like, "Yes, I have lines.
Well, it's so
I can finally talk."
It's so fucked up. You go to her voice actress's page, and you see like the most popular character, and it's Nezuko. Like if that was
making sounds.
And I'm like
they have her like on retainer. Like she's not able to take these other roles for like years.
She has to get these like back. You're gonna be in this backstory for an episode. But oh my god,
she's just like, I'm waiting. Like when I get lines again.
Let me speak. Yeah. So I think it makes sense that this one is like less popular than the other ones based on everything. But also it's like they got to make the final fight.
I was fine with her talking, by the way, because I saw what you were trying to say.
How funny is that?
It's hilarious.
I just realized at the end, I'm like, wait a minute. So the one where she's talking now, everyone's saying
it was just more of like it just came out of nowhere, and I'm like,
that's
okay.
Fair. Yeah,
and I was just like, all right.
No, I was definitely joking about that.
It was like a weird, like, okay, now Nezuko is like the gifted like demon that like now Muzan, Michael Jackson. Yeah. He's just like now like I need to get her. She is like has some gift.
Yeah.
That no other demon has, and she's the one. So
that's so weird.
It's just because she's related to Tanjiro.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, they obviously have the special. They have the special markings.
Yeah.
In the chosen one.
I figure that's what it really
is.
We're
going towards. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. Between like a few writing choices and that, like that's what bothered me. But what about you? I mean, I think your take is like No, I always hated it.
No, so it's misleading because I think Demon Slayer is just like a very interesting series to me. It's because I'm not super invested. I'm not super emotionally involved, but like I will be there to watch it and I'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think it's gone through every cycle of hype and anti-hype that is possible. We've heard it's the best looking series of all time. We've heard it's the worst looking series of all time. It's the best new show. It's the worst new show. I think it's somewhere like in the middle above average. I think it's a fun show. I think they do this very interesting thing where they nail these emotional hype moments. Even when I recognize I don't care about the characters, I get invested. Yeah. And like, you know, and they do really kill it when it comes to these big fights, which I can't say for every other series. Just look at us talking about Hell's Paradise. They don't kill the big fights. And I think Demon Slayer really does hit hard when it matters, but I could tell that they didn't hit hard this season because no one was really going hype off of these fights.
I actually was about to mention that. That's one of the criticisms I heard, and I agree with, that some of these big fights kind of devolved into just flashing lights on screen. Like you couldn't even tell what was going on. Like it didn't make sense. It wasn't like as detailed or precise as it was in previous seasons.
Yeah.
But I started feeling that fatigue too in like the end of season 2 with the whole big ass fight he had with the Usui at the last episode. Yeah.
What I like about that fight, besides like the choreography and the lighting, I think I do think it looks really cool. I think it's over the top. It's crazy. It's flashy like him. What's really cool about that fight is the previous season, of course, Rengoku or whatever.
Yeah. Mugen Train?
Yeah, Mugen Train. You know, they actually killed the Hashira. Yeah. So they've set the stage that, like, these Hashira can die in battle. Yeah. So the whole time when Uzi is, like, fighting this guy, you're on the edge of your seat. They're like, are they going to kill him off, too? He gets his hand cut off. What's going on? So you're really in, like, they could die or not die. And I think it does manage those stakes well, where you're on the edge of your seat, like, are they actually going to pull the trigger on this? But it makes it entertaining in the process. Yeah. So I think they do good with that. This time around, you also are kind of, like, in the back of your mind, you're aware that they could kill them, but I mean, it's obviously not going to be as much of a consistent thing anymore, so it's tough to maintain.
I mean, there's
tension.
Only so many Hashira. Yeah, but I don't know. Like at the end of season 2, like that was okay. But I've always like never been too attached to the story. I think I've also I think when it comes to what it does with the medium, I think that's what it does well, and I think it plays up to its strengths, and that's what really makes Demon Slayer so like popular and good. Yeah. In terms of the story itself, I've always thought the story is like, it's okay. It's like above average.
Yeah, because it's just going to go to a new location, some shit's going to go down, and then they're going to kill some demons.
And I think it's because the characters, to me, have never really felt very like fleshed out. They kind of feel like caricatures, and that's kind of it. So yeah,
they're there. They show up. And that's why I was also okay with Zenitsu and Inosuke not being here for a season, because sometimes they go hard with their fights. Sometimes they do good. But a lot of times in the slice of life, like pre-fight stuff, they get very grating. So I was okay with taking a breather.
I could see that. Yeah. Like they're fun in the fights. Outside of the fights, it's like when it's just nonstop yelling, it could be a little much.
Yeah, but that's why it's a miracle that I like Demon Slayer as much as I do, because I don't really care about the characters, but it does make me care in the hype moments. Yeah. And I think that is really what's made it such a success story.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm concerned with now is that I actually have heard that, I looked up, like, what's the best Demon Slayer arc according to the manga, and it technically peaked at Mugen Train. So
people say Mugen Train?
Yeah, like, that was the highest.
I don't know.
So I think everything after this is downhill.
I've heard of some cool stuff that happens in the manga that I'm excited for.
Yeah, okay.
I've heard of a cool thing, and I think that's going to scratch the shonen itch of, like, cool things we've seen before but executed in, like, a hype way. That could go really hard.
Okay.
I will not spoil it unless you want me to.
Yeah, because I was just like, oh, man, if that was the peak, I don't know. Like, there's nothing after this.
Yeah, I don't know if we can trust fans on, like, best arcs, though. Because I like the third season more than the second season.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I like the Yoshiro. Is it not? Entertainment District. I like the Entertainment District arc.
Is that technically the third season, or is that the second season?
I don't know what we're doing, because they played the movie as a second season.
Okay.
I don't care. Third arc.
Entertainment.
I like the Entertainment District arc more than Mugen Train arc.
Yeah, okay.
And, that's probably my favorite thus far. I think
I like Mugen Train more than the Entertainment arc.
Well, the Mugen Train one is so weird because I didn't watch it as the TV series padded out. I just saw the movie.
I saw the movie.
Yeah, so we did. So it's kind of like 80% of it is them fighting the train, and then in the last like 20% they're fighting that one. It feels like a bit disjointed for me, which I think it could actually work better as like a manga where you're just reading the chapters.
I got you.
But like packaged as a movie, it's a bit weird. But it's still good. It's just not.
I mean, I think the 20 minutes just hit for me. Just like those last 20 minutes.
They do go hard.
You didn't think he was gonna die. It was just like, holy shit! Like he just kind of went out, and it's like, damn, I'm so sad. Like I barely knew you, but now I care.
No, It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do like, every time I see an arc that takes place in Entertainment District or Yoshiwara, it goes really hard. So I am conditioned to like arcs there.
All right. Well, there's more Demon Slayer to come.
There's more demons to kill.
So we'll have more thoughts as it comes out. But this arc, I don't know. It felt like a low, But,
yeah.
And like setup, really. It's set up for more of what's to come.
Yeah. More demons to come.
Like as the other arcs had like peaks of like progression, this was like, again, it still felt overall like kind of like a side story, sort of like, all right, he gets a sword and now he's like ready to.
Now he's got the sword.
Yeah.
Big boy sword time.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And that's it.
Yeah. Except for
no, that's about it. That's all. No, I'm kidding. Except for the last two we punted to the end, which are the two romance shows. Let's start with Skip and Loafer.
Okay, Skip and Loafer. I think you read some of the manga for, and then
I read some of the manga initially for it, and then I sped run the anime because I watched the first episode. I'm like, oh, I like this, but I couldn't wait, so I'm like, all right, I need to confirm how this goes. Read some of the manga, and then recently went and watched the rest of the anime. So I think Skip and Loafer is really great.
I think it is really great too.
It's
really fun,
really wholesome, really fun. Like it subverts a lot of things. Like I'm not trying to say that in like the
deconstruction way.
It subverts, it's so different. I'm like, I think
high school.
It's just like it's refreshing. Like all these moments that you think could breed like lead to the typical petty miscommunication, high school drama bullshit ends up being like these like wholesome like character development moments or they don't harp too long on the miscommunication. It builds to something else. I'm like, oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. I think in a weird way, I was reflecting on it. I know it will probably lead to a romance, but at the moment, I feel like it's just a very good like friendship slice of life series that does do like what you're talking about of like, it really does show the intricacies of high school communication and the different ways like, friend groups work, friend group dynamic, popular versus not popular, city versus country.
Yeah.
Interactions and how there's so many fundamental differences, but then also kind of bridging the gap between the two.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's like there's so many things that could be very frustrating that are handled in such a refreshing way, but still feel like they have the same like gravity of, seriousness.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they're brushing over things. I feel like they're really handling things in an interesting way. I like the two main characters and their friend groups are very good. Is it Mitsumi?
Let's be real here. It's gonna lead to a romance. Let's just get that out.
But it's not like I'd say the anime has not covered the romance.
No, it definitely
hasn't. But it will lead to
a
romance, which is cute.
But I like that it's so like it's not putting all its eggs in that basket. It's actually taking the time to develop the friend group. Like it's taking it gives you enough time with the main character, but it like pulls away from her to focus on her new side friend that she made, or like her friend that wasn't her friend that was like a kind of a bully, but now like her character growth and her feelings.
Yeah.
And like it constantly like switches away to make you feel like invested in the whole friend group that they're forming, like you were just saying. And that's what makes it like so refreshing. And,
definitely.
And then it helps ground the friendship that she has with the main guy, the main lead.
Shima-kun.
Yeah. And like he's interesting too because he's just like, he's an interesting character because
he's very socially aware, which is very interesting.
He's very socially aware, but also hides it really well because he just also comes off as like the lighthearted. He also comes off as like the lighthearted,
nice
like
guy.
Carefree, nice guy that is like maybe a little airheaded, but deep down like he knows everything that's going on and he picks up on everything.
Like when I think one of my favorite early moments was when they had the girl who was trying to get with Shima-kun, and like she resents Mitsumi for like clicking with him naturally.
The one that looks like Misato with red hair.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I forget her name. Mika-chan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's kind of interesting because she's obviously like, she's come to high school and she's being a bit of a tryhard. She wants to get with a hot guy and she resents Mitsumi for like being a bit plain, but then also gelling with Shima-kun a bit more. And at some point she was like giving off weird vibes and he's like, hey, like you can just kind of calm down a bit. Yeah. And he says it in a very nice way, but also a way that lets her know that like he's aware of what she's trying to do when they're going on a friend outing.
Yeah.
And that's when you can tell like there's like a very mature look at this high school situation that like when you're in high school, you don't have that same awareness, but it's obviously made for kind of like people who are looking back on high school. And
like it sort of feels like
like what you wish high school
Yes.
could have been. Like if we had been more socially aware back then.
Exactly. Yeah.
In a way, it's like a fantasy like fulfillment of that. And it's like nice. It's like nice of like to be like, oh hey, you know, this is just wholesome.
Like, hey,
this is healing.
Like, hey, when I did this, like this character, I was kind of cringe. Only they realize they're cringe in real time and they can fix it.
And they point it out to them and they help him out. Like they don't judge him too harshly on it. And it's like, all right, you know, just slow your roll. And also he's just like weird, like he's very like stern and blunt, like about it. Like when he like means something, he like sticks to it and he just says it.
I really like that about because I was waiting for him to be like toxic because eventually they always have to reveal a toxic side, and his toxic side isn't really that toxic. It's just a lot of like very understandable like insecure baggage. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, from like his child acting days, which I think carry over in an interesting way, especially when he's interacting with Mitsumi, who's very like
straightforward
and self-confident in like her own goals. And he doesn't really have strong goals, so sometimes it can like contrast with his lack of ambition.
Yeah,
in an
he's like the
way.
laid back character where she's like the pushes forward like kind of character. And so like it's an interesting push and pull, and I think it's very endearing that like how like he's the like the stereotypical like shoujo like popular good looking guy. And she's like the plain girl, but like that they find something in each other that each one of them, I think they comment on this earlier, doesn't have. Like each one of them doesn't have, and they like that about each other. Like makes them gravitate towards each other. So that's kind of cool.
And it feels like a very natural friendship between the two of them, which I really like.
Like you feel like they just gel together.
They just vibe. And it's cool.
Yeah, like it's just so weird. Like they just hit it off from the beginning. You're like, what's his deal? Like, is he actually interested in her? And it's like, he just wants to talk to her.
Yeah,
because I think he's constantly like approached by other women that just kind of like his looks.
In such a disingenuous way.
Yeah,
she's very genuine, and he's always has disingenuous interactions with people. Especially since you get the impression that like Tokyo, it's a lot about like their appearance and how they're coming across. And she's like a country girl, so she's just kind of like she's just herself.
Yeah,
it's very different cultural vibe that
and
she has.
Especially for him, who was in the acting side and like in the showbiz side of things, where it's even more like probably like superficial. So you know, he's had to deal with more of those types of people. So
very interesting.
But and I really like the supporting cast. Like
I don't like supporting cast that often in romance series, and I like this supporting cast.
Because I think they usually phone them in, you know, and here it's like, you know, they're literally just a supporting cast, but here it feels like a natural like friend group. Like I really like what they did with the blonde haired girl Yuzuki. Like how like they make her come off as this like, you know, like really good looking, like probably cold like character who's actually like really warm hearted, friendly, and like actually like wants to be friends with, you know, she doesn't care about like, you know,
appearances
or social status or whatever. She just wants to be friends with these other girls.
Yeah, and you could definitely see her as kind of like the mirror to Shima-kun, where like she gets dragged into all the relationship stuff, can't form like genuine relationships with girls and people. So now she's just like, I don't want people to drag me into stuff. I just want to chill. Which makes a lot of sense.
And I think like that the fact that they can form a friend group that like they even say like we wouldn't like people like us wouldn't normally be friends, but we're friends. It's like, oh, that's like really cool. And that's where I think the anime made for adults or like looking back is there. Like realistically, this probably wouldn't happen, but it's like it's nice to think, you know, to have a show like where this did happen. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
it's good. And now we need a season 2.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
I think it will happen.
I hope so.
What did you think about the adaptation? Like I know you didn't read the manga,
but I think it looks great. Yeah. I think they did a really good job with the art style. And they did a good job, like, you know, it always looked good and was charming, and you know, they nailed it.
Yeah, because I like the manga to anime is like very like one for one.
Yeah.
But it's not like it doesn't have like a little flair to it or like moments that like makes it really cute or something like that. But it's mostly the same, so it's pretty good.
That's cool. And I love her aunt. I think her aunt is a really cool character.
Yeah. I like the moment she has with where she's stalking Mitsumi on her zoo date.
She's like, why is this good-looking guy like trying to take Mitsumi out? Is he trying to like mislead her?
But I also like too that they used it as an opportunity to have her like meet
Mika.
Is that her name? Yeah, Mika.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and like have them like sort of semi-bond and like, okay, you know, why are they having these two characters meet? And then when she goes to the sleepover, it's like, oh, I see myself in her.
Yeah.
And then she tries to guide her. And then the next thing you know, she stays at the pajama party. And it's
I love that. That was such a cool thing of like leaving because you feel uncomfortable And then like it's so cool that they had that moment with her where she's like, even if you want to go back just a little bit, go, because you don't get a chance to make authentic friends that often. And then she's like, oh, but what if I'm cringe? And then it's like, it's good to be cringe because that's a bit endearing. And that's something we all recognize as an adult is like when people are cringe, they're often being very vulnerable in some way. But when you're a kid, that's like the end of the world. You're like, I can't be cringe.
Like you want to find somewhere you can let your guard down and be cringe. And it's great to like, it's crazy and great like to have like an adult like to be able to tell you that. 'Cause sometimes like when you're a kid, there is no adult that's going to be like, that pulls you back and be like, hey, it's okay.
Be cringe.
Yeah. Like, no, you kind of have to learn that the hard way. And for like a storytelling perspective, this helps speed things up. But it also makes it feel like a little more wholesome where everyone here is like trying to support each other. They're trying to do their best. They're trying to like help each other out. Like the only one that stuck out like a sore thumb, which I think she was meant to, was the main guy, Shima's childhood friend.
The
one,
model.
Yeah. I'm like, why does her art style look worse than everybody else? I'm like, wait, that's the point.
Yeah. And she was interesting too of like, she does care about him, but also like was thwarted by him. And she's not out of that world of like superficiality, so that was an interesting contrast.
I liked how they developed it, because at first it was like, all right, I don't know where they're going with this. She's just going to be like a wrench at their side. She's the complication that they added, but then by the end it's like, oh, she also feels bad, she's like, she kind of knew what she was doing, but it was her way of latching onto him. So
that makes sense.
I'm very excited to see where it goes. Like, it's
I know.
And it has like this nice steady pace where it's like, okay, you kind of just want to see how the friendships blossom. And even with the student council president, that's actually pretty good too.
Yeah, I like that. That was like, that's interesting.
Like I thought she was also going to be like throwaway, like just like one episode with her and then no more focus on her, but then we've kind of still see more of her.
That'll be interesting. Yeah.
So
good
I like
show.
It. Yeah.
Good show.
But it's not your favorite this season.
No, I got brain rotted hard.
That's why I saved the best for last.
For me, at least.
Yeah, for you. Because we got to talk about, like, because again, we got all these, like, peak shows. Some are peak.
Yeah.
This season, and yet this one is your favorite. I know I'm saying that, like, in such a negative way, but I'm just curious. Like, so, what is it about this show? Well, let's name the show.
So it's Yamada-kun level 999. Loving Yamada.
Yeah, full name.
At 999. Level 999. So it's, like, another one of those kind of, like romance, but also like video game-esque romances, kind of like MMO junkie, and then like, trying to think like Wodakoi. It feels like a bit Wodakoi adjacent. So I actually wasn't originally watching this because I think it flew under a lot of people's radars, but I finished Buddy Daddies for winter, and I pointed out that what's his name? Yuichi. I want to say his full name. So the voice actor who does like Muroem Tsukishima, Yuichi. I think it's like not Yuichi, that's my other favorite. So, Yuchiyama, I think his name. So it's like a very specific, you'll know him if you've heard him. So he was in Buddy Daddies. I'm like, his voice is like one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite voice actors. And my friend pointed out that like, oh, he's also voicing someone in like this Yamada-kun show. And then I went to check it out, and I saw the first episode, and I was like, oh, this is really cute and charming. Let me keep going. And the more I looked into it, so it's a Madhouse production, and it's by the same director as Cardcaptor Sakura, Chihaya Furu, Nana.
Whoa.
So he's like the GOAT of shoujo directors. And I think the appeal of the series is really in the directing.
Yeah.
Because it's a very simple art style, very simple story of like, this is funny petty. So this girl is dating this guy, and he got her into this MMO game, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's an MMO.
She started playing this MMO just because her boyfriend was playing it. Yeah.
Then he dumps her because he met someone else in the game he likes.
Yeah.
So she's going to this in-person event.
And he cheated on her with him.
I think so, yeah.
Or it's alluded to. I don't know.
He found her and like immediately started dating the other girl, so probably cheated on her.
Yeah.
So she's going to this in-person event, and she's trying to like either see him and make him jealous, or just like go and like get her mind off it, whatever. She runs into some guy who's in her guild, and then she runs into her ex-boyfriend, and she's like, okay, pretend to be my boyfriend so I can make him jealous. And the guy in the guild, that Yamada, turns out to be like this super good looking guy, very like kind of aloof dude. So she's like bribing him with like a bonus to get like, you can have this add-on in the game. And then he's like, I'm her boyfriend. She's like, he is my boyfriend. And then it turns out he's a professional gamer.
Yeah.
And her boyfriend was like, her ex-boyfriend was like a huge stan and would like comment on all this stuff. So she was distraught.
Yeah, because he didn't even care about that. He was like, oh my God, it's you in the flesh. Oh my God.
And she has a funny line. He's like, he's bitter, not the way I expected, but works out anyway.
Yeah, he's bitter that like I'm hanging out with his idol and he's not, but he's more interested in his idol than me. And the thing with Yamada is he's harshly blunt. So like he's not really playing along. He's just being dragged.
He's just being dragged around.
And then long story short, she ends up getting drunk because of it. He has to end up listening to her, like, getting drunk. And
just being a disaster.
Being a disaster all night. And then she passes out at the izakaya, and then he has to take her home to his house. And then she wakes up in his apartment the next day.
Yeah, and she thought she had a one-night stand with him, but he's just like...
He's like, no, I was gaming. Yeah. I had to do an FPS tournament. All right, you can leave now. Bye.
And he was just like being nice to her, like, but she's such a disaster at first. So like trying to make her ex-boyfriend jealous. And then she like gets to know him and her guild a lot more because she sticks playing the game.
Yeah.
And I like that. She is just I like her because she's kind of a disaster.
Yeah.
But like a nice disaster, not too much of a disaster. So, it's like showing her being nice and like making friends with them. And then like both of them slowly warming up to each other and like realizing, he has a weird thing where like he's so good looking, but he's just like a gamer and he's like awkward about stuff. So like he's not into romance or like these girls confessing. And she's kind of like aware of him not being good with girls. So she just like talks to him about games because she's not immediately like interested in him. And then he's like teaching her more about the game because she like did not learn how to play the game. So she's like upgrading entry level gear and stuff. So it's just both of them kind of learning from each other. And I think and then of course by the end we have like, a cute confession when she gets drunk again.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I like this as the confession. And she's like, do you like me? Because I was kind of getting that vibe. And she's like, I'm drunk, so I might be just like messing. And he's like, okay,
busted.
It's like,
and actually, that's the first time I think we see him smile like that the whole series. So
and then they get together by the end.
Spoilers.
But and it's cute. But I really like the directing and how it's shown.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of very simple things presented in a cool way.
It's a simple show. Like very simple on the surface, but I actually really like the art direction. Like the stuff, like a lot of like, sometimes it'll jump like to the next scenes, but it does these cool transitions.
Yes.
Where, like, boop, boop, and like, it's kind of, it makes it funny.
Yeah.
Like, or exactly. A character, she's like, I'm going to go on my group date. And then it shifts to a text like, yeah, my group date failed. And like, she's like consoling her. Like it's a quick transition, but it adds to the comedy. A lot of things with the art, like the what's her name? Ruri? No, Ruri's the brother. What's his sister's name?
Yeah, that's right.
No, her name is Runa. Runa. But Rurihime is based on Runa. But the episode even with her, where it's like a whole like little backstory narrated by her, like that was like an interesting like art style.
Yeah, because she idolizes herself as like this princess, like this untouchable princess.
Yeah, so it has like a lot of like this soft like color palette at times, or like these cool like transitions or the facial expressions. I don't know, like it's really nice.
Yeah, they do a lot because the manga art style is very simple, but like I feel like they elevate it a lot. And it feels very so it's very simple. Like I definitely don't blame anyone for not being as impressed with it as I am, but I feel like there's a very like authentic progression to it in a way that's like even from like their confession onwards. It
looks very plain, grounded. But the presentation of it it does more with it, like it's not like completely plain,
Yeah.
So it makes it interesting to look at. But and I thought it was good.
So you did like it because you dropped it originally.
So I dropped it originally. I watched the
understandable.
first episode with my wife, and we're like watching it. We just put it on. I'm like, at first I wasn't even feeling it. I didn't even want to check it out, but I was like, I probably should. Why not? Yeah. And I saw like it was kind of anticipated, so I'm like, all right, let me look at it.
Yeah.
And I watched it, and something about it, the pacing felt a little slow for me.
Yeah, definitely.
So it just felt like, okay, like it's kind of taking a long time to get to these moments, and like it really didn't like pick up in terms of like it really until the end with that cliffhanger. It's like, oh, now it gets steamy.
Yeah.
But besides that, it was the mix of the pacing and the characters. Like they like the main guy, like him being the way he was, didn't really like pull me in. Like, I don't really care. Yeah. Like there's nothing wrong with him. He's just a typical good-looking guy that doesn't really have a personality.
Yeah.
And then the girl was like, yeah, she's a disaster, but there wasn't really much more to her. So I just wasn't drawn by their dynamic because I was like, okay, he's gonna warm up to her over time.
Yeah, it feels a bit predictable.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll watch it, maybe I won't. And then my wife had the same opinion. She's like, yeah, it's kind of whatever, but the art style was nice, and that was kind of it. So then I just didn't like really watch more of it. And then I heard Shaw like shilling it, like agenda, like my favorite anime this season. I'm like, damn it.
It was really it really grew on me over time.
I was like, I gotta understand.
Yeah. So do you feel a bit more attached to it by the end?
I had a good time with it. I'm not gonna lie. I was watching the episodes.
You can lie.
I am not lying. Blink twice. If you need help. No, I had a good time with it. I think like I still had issues with the pacing as I was going.
That makes sense.
Because there was a lot of moments where it's like, it just felt like slow. Like it just felt like, I don't know. It felt like what more is there? And it was like, it was really in the subtle moments, in the subtle progression of like the characters visiting her house, her becoming more friends with Runa and kind of like, it felt at sometimes like the development, because it wasn't really riding on the growing relationship between her and Yamada. There's not, differently from Skip and Loafer, there's not much riding on the supporting cast.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's really on those two, and the development between those two is kind of slow because it's meant to be that way.
Yeah, definitely.
So you get a little bit of payoff at a time, and that's what made it slow. But no, certain moments with the characters were really funny, like really cool, like especially when Runa sent the stranger to like as the prank, and then it turns out to be like this stupidly like innocent thing where he like gave her pain relievers in the bathroom. She hit her leg. But I found it really funny that the old dude that's part of the gamer group is like racing over there and like, it's like, are you okay? Is everything all right?
That's so funny.
What do I have to do?
Yeah.
And then it's funny that you find out later he's like a big time CEO.
Yeah, and they're getting like treated really well, and it's like, what do you do?
I actually also really like Eita.
Yeah, I think he's cool.
His contrast between him being Rurihime and then also like and having like this motherly kind of caretaker disposition in real life. So that's kind of interesting. I did feel like they were setting him up to get with her friend the whole time because I'm like, she's not mentioning him. She's not mentioning his name.
Yeah, they make it happen.
Yeah, so and then by the end, I'm like, okay, yeah, I see where this is going. So yeah, I like things about it. I thought it was fun. I don't know if I liked Skip and Loafer better just because I feel like it has a stronger supporting cast. But
definitely, Skip and Loafer definitely has a better supporting cast. I'd agree.
But I think by the end of it, I felt like pretty satisfied with it. Like it was better than your like typical like seasonal, you know.
Which is truly the highest praise.
And I heard that you said it's not really the first season, like the content that they cover in this first season where it's really good. It's more later in the manga.
Yeah, because I think my take on it is I think this content was good and it was definitely elevated by the source material. Source material elevated by the adaptation, which did a lot.
Yeah.
I think it did a lot to make it a lot more interesting. But now I feel like the content, if we get a season 2 of it, that's when it's really going to shine, at least for me, because it's like established couple, get to see them as a couple doing like couple things and like different, ways they interact with others around them. And I think that's when it really shines because I've read the manga halfway through the season, which is really why I like it so much. The combination of those
I also
two.
think Akane grew on me more over time, especially once she started getting like the convenience store job. Her dynamic started building with the guy. I forget his name. The main guy. Yamada. He's in the title with Yamada. And, and then he gradually like opened up and you see him like, caring for her.
This is the weirdest thing because it's technically a love triangle, but I think the way they handled his relationship with the other girl who had a crush on him that he's known from school, like that whole confession and letdown was handled really well. They did a good job with that.
That was
because I like her a lot. And any other time I'd be like rooting for her.
She's
like,
great.
Go
She
off.
actually looks like the other girl from Skip and Loafer.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, oh hey, it's her.
Yeah, the Skip and Loafer girl.
But yeah, no, I thought that was handled really well because I'm like, oh shit, another complication. She confessed before Akane. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
But no, I think that it was really good, really mature, kind of like, and that was kind of it. She kind of needed like that closure. So
definitely,
I'm glad it didn't like turn into a bigger thing.
Yeah, it was a very minuscule thing. So
yeah, and I actually was looking forward to her like becoming part of the guild and becoming friends with Akane and like the other girl who really doesn't want her to be in it.
Yeah, which
Runa.
is so funny. Yeah.
So that's really funny, and I'm glad that also that Runa kind of got over her crush on on what's his face on Yamada.
Yeah,
like now she's more friendly with Akane and they're kind of building their own dynamic. I feel like their friend Momo is going to end up joining the guild. I think
that would be interesting.
They're selling her on this MMO much with like showing her like
who are these
all the hot guys are playing the MMO, which
like
is
what's going on?
Which is not reality. Only
you have to
shoujo.
remind the audience. You're like, this isn't real.
So like, yeah, and so like I feel like she's gonna eventually join. So it's fun. So I thought that was good.
It's definitely fun. We're not getting like, we're not gonna reconsider any life-changing events from it.
Probably.
But I hope we get a season 2 so they can kind of continue this cool adaptation of like the more interesting content for me.
Was it that what hit for you? Was it very Shaw core?
No, I don't know. It really grew on me over time. It wasn't an immediate thing where I saw it and I'm like, okay. But it's like you start noticing like the cool direction of how they present things.
Yeah.
Even through like
I'm
the
like
beer
watching
goggles.
this and I'm just like, this main character, she kind of reminds me of Hachi.
She is. I do love her.
Like, she's a disaster. I'm like, she kind of reminds me of Hachi.
She's such a disaster.
She's one step away from going out with a Takumi.
Oh my god, no. Akane would never. She would never.
Her standards are higher.
Most people would thankfully not date a Takumi.
She's more of a healthy Hachi.
She's like this series is like this is like Hachi good ending.
yeah, actually, yeah.
I could phrase it as that.
Yeah. We're talking about Nana, so
yeah.
if you want more of that, you can watch our Nana podcast.
We do, yeah, we have that.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's mostly like if someone was like, oh, I had a great time with it, I'd understand it, but if they're like, oh, nothing special, I could just as easily understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, would you say this is like, I'm like trying to think of like, because this is like what you consider like kind of in your peak of like slice of life romance series.
I'd say it's a good, one of the best, I'd say one of the better shoujo romances or just romance series.
Would you put this above like a few years back? No, not a few years, maybe a couple years back, a year back, we watched My Senpai is Annoying.
Oh yeah.
Would you put this above that?
As a romance, yes.
Because the other one isn't much
more
of
a comedy.
Yeah, it's more of a comedy.
And I have to read the manga for that one to see what's up. But that one was also another one where I feel like the adaptation elevated it a lot.
Okay.
And this one, it's not like the art style is bad. It's just very simple art style.
Yeah.
So both elevated by their adaptations a lot.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I had a good time with it.
Yeah, me too.
So for this season, this is the top. This was your favorite of the season.
I just had so much fun with this.
Okay.
This one, but you can't really go wrong with like that. Skip and Loafer. I do Oshi no Ko.
Yeah.
Those are like the big ones for me.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. I think for me, I mean, I kind of already said it. I think it's Vinland Saga.
Yeah.
I would say Oshi no Ko if I watched the adaptation completely, maybe.
Yeah.
I think it's the ones we mentioned, Vinland Saga, and then probably Skip and Loafer, marginally over Yamada.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of it because I was kind of let down by the
by
the other stuff.
Maybe the season kind of mid. Just kidding.
Maybe. I don't know. I think it was a solid season.
Yeah.
I think like we've also been spoiled by a lot of seasons in the past that were like extremely packed.
Yeah.
With both sequels and new shows and then everything hit at once.
Yeah.
That it was more of a, all right, this one's 9.9 and this one's 9.8 and this is 9.75. You know, it's kind of like pulling, grasping at straws.
This is a weirdly refreshing season.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like it is. I liked it a lot.
I mean, it brought you back into seasonals.
Brought me back in the game.
That's
when I thought they pulled me back out.
I think I'm going to call it. I think you're retiring from seasonals next season. I think that's it. You're back out.
I think the summer season is retiring from seasonals because there's no shows coming out besides sequels.
Someone tried to tell me this wasn't the case, but like, am I wrong to say like, usually summer season is like not usually a peak season.
Summer is not
it's usually kind of like a dry.
It's been like that for the past couple years.
Because it's always usually spring, fall. That's like those are like the pack
winter
seasons.
has been big too.
Yeah. Well, winter I think it has a mix like of like shows that are big and then hit or miss shows.
Yes.
Because sometimes winter what it does have is leftovers.
Yes,
leftovers from the fall.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So, but I do think fall tends to be very big a lot of times, and spring can be like that too.
Yeah.
Pretty much summer is the only one that's consistently kind of a dry spell. That's the catch-up time.
Yeah.
Which will be the catch-up time for me. So, besides Mushoku Tensei and Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yeah, because those are the only two this coming season.
And
right?
well, there are some other big hitters. Rent a Girlfriend season 3, Matsumeiku's Revenge.
No.
Talk about who wanted a sequel for that for 500.
I think we're ending the podcast now.
Yeah, so we're done.
I do have to say one last thing. Buddy Daddies, I never finished. I know we talked about it earlier, but it was actually kind of refreshing. That was actually like I expected it to be like Spy Family, and I just wanted to say it was his own. It's for what I watched, it was its own thing.
I think it's its own thing.
Yeah.
That's very different from Spy.
No, it's a totally like
he's
its own
going
thing.
for similar vibes, but very different approach to it. And I had a lot of fun with Buddy Daddies. That's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, what
of
I
the
saw
year.
so far was like very, very fun, and the
it
little
does
girl felt like more of an actual toddler, what they would be like than Anya. Like I love Anya, but
well, Anya can read minds.
Yeah.
This one is like a kid.
Like
she's
she
like
felt like legit
kid.
a kid. Like so much that it drove my wife crazy. She's like, turn that shit off.
Get it away.
Like that's bad parenting. Like someone needs to get that girl under control.
Oh, I'd say continue watching it. I like it. Yeah. What's very cool about it is very much a complete story in one core.
That's awesome.
They're probably not doing another season. If they would, it would be like a prequel, but like it's a complete story.
That's an easy sell.
And but I gotta say, this is looking like the year of PA Works, because PA Works did that and they did Skip and Loafer.
You know what that just reminded me that I did not notice Skip and Loafer was a PA Works show until like I was watching the last episode and I saw the credits roll. I'm like, oh, this is PA Works.
I'm very excited to have multiple
They're
PA
making
Works
a comeback
that I am enjoying.
Yeah, I haven't been invested in a PA Works since like
I think
show in like long time.
That and then with like with Yamada is Madhouse. And then between that and Sunny Boy from 2021, and there's more Madhouse series that have come out.
Right, Sunny Boy was Madhouse. Okay.
Yeah, they're kind of stepping in to be like, Mappa, little bro, what's up?
Guys got to stop, taking on so many shows.
Yeah, exactly.
They got to finish Attack on Titan finally.
Yeah, finish it. Final.
Yeah. All right, so that's all we got for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to end it here. The only other show that we didn't get to talk about that transcended the seasons because we didn't watch it during a season was Blue Lock. So we got to talk about that at some point. Yeah. Yes. So stay tuned. Like I said, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe. And we have like more stuff down the pipeline that we're working on. So
we are cooking.
Yeah, we're cooking. So besides that, I don't know. How do we end this?
I don't know about you.
I don't know about you. I don't know. Yeah.
What do we know?
Yeah, that's what it was.
What
right?
do we know?
What do we know? Yeah, what do we know?
We're just weebs.